Assalamu alaikum everyone. Today we are going to present our topic carbon emission reduction in heavy industries. This presentation is a part of our course Introduction to Engineering Studies. I am Mohammad Farhan Islam and my group members are Sadia Tahsin, Anik Ghosh, Sowayef Rahman and Shahed Arman Shuvo. So first we have the objective part. The main objective of our study is to understand where carbon emissions come from in heavy industries. We also look at how these emissions affect the environment and the economy. Another important goal is to explore modern technologies that help reduce emissions. Finally, we highlight the role of engineers in creating sustainable and eco-friendly industrial practices. Overview. Now let me give you a quick overview of our presentation. First, we'll discuss the sources of carbon emissions. Then, we'll explain the impacts of these emissions. After that, we'll talk about methods to reduce carbon emissions. Next, we'll look at some challenges followed by a case study. Finally, we'll end with a conclusion. So, what is a heavy industry? Heavy industry refers to industries that produce large-scale products using big machines and complex processes. Examples include steel factories, cement plants, oil refineries, and power plants. These industries need a lot of energy and use huge equipment, which is why they produce high amounts of carbon emissions. Why carbon emission is a big problem? This is a common question. So carbon emissions are a major problem because they trap heat in the Earth's atmosphere. This causes global warming and climate change. As a result, we see melting ice, rising sea levels, extreme weather and ocean acidification. These changes negatively affect human health, natural ecosystems and the global economy. So reducing carbon emissions is very important for environmental balance. In conclusion, reducing carbon emissions in heavy industries is not optional, it is necessary. With better technology, responsible industrial practices and skilled engineers, we can move toward a more sustainable and greener future. Thank you everyone for listening. Now my group member will continue.
Hello everyone, I'm Shuvo. Let's get started. When we think about carbon emissions, we often picture cars and airplanes. However, the backbone of our modern world, heavy industry, is a much larger contributor. Together, steel, cement and chemical production emit over 8 billion tons of carbon dioxide annually. Now I will talk about three major sources of carbon emission. Number 1, steel making relies on coal to create coke for blast furnaces. It does not just burn fuel or heat. The chemical reaction itself releases carbon dioxide. Number 2, cement production is equally challenging. While fuel is used for heat, 60% of its emissions come from the chemical breakdowns of limestone, meaning we cannot solve the problem just by switching to renewable electricity. Number 3, chemical production uses fossil fuels as both the energy source and the literal feedstock or raw material for the products themselves. Now, what is the impact beyond climate of carbon emissions? First, we face health crises. Industrial air pollution is directly linked to chronic respiratory diseases, putting a massive strain on public health systems. Secondly, there is significant economic risk. With the rise of carbon taxes and border adjustments, high-emitting companies face shrinking profit margins. Carbon is no longer just an environmental leisure item, it is a financial liability. Finally, we see resources depletion. Inefficient processes waste both energy and raw materials. In today's market, competitiveness and sustainability are no longer separate goals. They go hand in hand. Ignoring this transition isn't an option, it is a risk to business survival. So ultimately, addressing industrial emissions is no longer just an environmental obligation, but a critical necessity for protecting global public health and ensuring long-term economic profitability in a carbon-conscious market.
Hello everyone, I am Anik. Today I will going to talk about what is the solution of carbon emission in heavy industries. The solution is not just one method. It requires multiple approaches that reduce emission. I will explain four important methods. Method 1. Energy efficiency and digitalization. First, we should use energy more efficiently. With AI and sensors, factories can control temperature and avoid wasting fuels. For example, a cement plant in Germany reduces fuel use by 5%. This method cheap, easy and gives fast result. Method 2. Fuel switching and electrification. Second, we should replace coal. Instead of coal, industries can use green hydrogen, electric furnaces, biomass and waste fuels. These options can reduce emission a lot. Method 3. Carbon capture. Sometimes emission cannot be avoided, so we can capture carbon dioxide before it goes into the air. Norway's Longship project is an example. It is costly but important for the future. Method 4. Circular economy. Finally, we should reuse materials. For example, using steel waste in cement, recycling plastics. These reduce waste and save energy. Actually, no single solution is enough. By combining all these methods, heavy industries can reduce carbon emission and protect the environment.
Hello everyone, myself Sadia Tahsin. Today I will talk about an important topic, challenges in reducing carbon emissions and case study on carbon reduction. Now I will highlight the major challenges in reducing carbon emissions in heavy industries. The first challenge is the high capital cost of low carbon challenges such as carbon capture systems, electrifications and hydrogen-based process, which require large initial investments. The second challenge is technological limitations in industries like cement productions. A significant amount of carbon dioxide is released from unavoidable chemical reactions, making complete emissions eliminations difficult. Another challenge is the dependence on fossil fuels, as heavy industries require continuous high temperature energy that renewable sources cannot always reliably provide. Finally, policy and regulatory challenges, such as weak carbon pricing and limited incentives, slow down adoptions of cleaner technologies. Overall, these challenges show that emissions reduction requires not only technology but also strong policies and long-term investments. Now, I will briefly present case study on carbon emissions reductions in heavy industries. First, the steel industry contributes around 7 to 9% of global carbon dioxide emissions. Most emissions arise of coal-based blast furnace operations. To reduce emissions, many producers have shifted from blast furnaces to electric arc furnaces, which use electricity instead of coal. When powered by renewable energy, these furnaces significantly lower emissions. As a result, several projects have achieved carbon emissions reductions of about 25 to 35%. This shows can cleaner energy use and modern production methods can substantially reduce emissions in steel manufacturing. Next, the oil and gas industry granted emissions during extractions, refining, transportations, and gas flaring, with methane being a major concern due to its high global warming potential. To address these, companies have reduced routing flaring, improved lake directions, and applied carbon capture utilizations and storage technologies. Additionally, some upstream operations have been electrified use renewable energy. Finally, the cement industry is responsible of nearly 8% of global carbon dioxide emissions. A significant portion of these emissions comes from limestone and calcinations, which is a chemical process and difficult to avoid. To reduce emissions, cement producers have adopted alternative fuels, clinker substitutions, and carbon capture technologies. These strengths have resulted in 20 to 30% reduction in carbon emissions, highlighting the importance of material innovations. In conclusions, these case studies show that while heavy industries are intensive sectors, specific technological solutions can significantly reduce emissions. A combination of cleaner energy, advanced technologies, and process innovations is essential of long-term process. Thank you, everyone.
Hello everyone, Assalamu alaikum. You already knew my name. My name is Sowayef Rahman. Now I am going to present the conclusion part of this presentation. Conclusion. Heavy industries are major contributors to global carbon emission, but they are essential for economic development. Case studies from steel, oil and gas and cement industries shows that significant emission reduction are achievable. Technologies such as energy efficiency improvements, fuel switching, electrification, CCUS, and curricular economic practice play a key role in reduction emission. While changing as high cost and technological limitation remains, continued invention and policy support can overcome these barriers. Engineers have a curricular responsibility in designing and implementing sustainable and low-carbon industrial solutions for a greener future. That's it our presentation, and thank you for having with us.